righty, hi. My name's Jerry Vasey. The show is I Can't Write Right? And have you started your story yet? I keep saying that. I keep hoping you have. It's a wonderful thing. This is Ilamae Lund. She wrote a book, Holy Cows. And my first question is, what inspired you to write your book?
Well, you want the short answer or the long answer?
Either one will do.
I'll give you the short answer first. I was born to storytelling. Mm-hmm. I was born into storytelling. And so it has always been an interest of mine. And I've written many stories, and this story was especially one which seemed to touch not only my heart, but the heart of my readers. It was first to be known as The Holy Night. But my editor discouraged that. She said, no, you don't want to call it The Holy Night. That sounds like a religious book, and does not invite a reader to pick it up. So she suggested Holy Cows, which I thought was terrible, but I went for it, and I've been happy with the reception that it's gotten. I haven't done a lot of promoting, but it speaks to the people of my age and generation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand that you talked to some seniors one time, and they didn't know anything about the Depression. But that inspired me, because this is why I'm asking some people to learn how to write. And even if they only tuck it under the mattress, they're going through generations that the youngsters had no idea.
Absolutely not. I can't believe that I have lived so long that the senior citizens of the present age did not have a first-hand familiarity with the Depression. I can't believe it, but it's true.
Oh, yeah.
And so I did speak about that down at Richmond at the library there, and they were fascinated, and my talk was very well received. It was a surprise to me. Now, The Holy Cows, of course, is written about that exact age, the early 30s. Mm-hmm. I was born just before the banks closed in 1929, so I literally ushered in that Great Depression. And I didn't suffer from it. My older siblings did, but I certainly remember it.
Now, you were on a farm?
Oh, yes. We lived on a small family farm, 160 acres, diversified type. We had some pigs and some chickens, and we had 10 cows. 10 cows doesn't sound like very much to Vermonters, but 10 cows is what we had, and they all had names.
When you milk by hand,
oh, yes, of course.
Cows is a lot different than nowadays with all the machinery.
Oh, yes. I milked by my mother, milked 10 cows twice a day because my father died when I was 3.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
And so in order to stay on the farm, we really needed to use what little cash revenue we got from the cream and milk. Not the milk, but the cream. And we had chickens for eggs. Mother had a big garden. And we never went hungry.
Wow.
We looked a little bit like the grapes of wrath. Well, probably quite a lot like the grapes of wrath, but we always had a home, and we always had food.
Oh, yes. Now, you said that it's sort of a semi. What about the book is special? What happened that
well,
caused you to
the
write
book turned out to just encompass 2 memories that have remained prominent in my memory throughout my life. Mm-hmm. And I decided to just concentrate on those 2. The one was when I was looking toward my 4th birthday. And I don't want to tell too much of the story because I'd like people to buy my book, of course.
Yeah.
But the first one, actually, I'd like to read a little bit. May I read a little bit of it now?
Sure.
Okay, let me just see if I can quickly find something here. Well, let's start here. The first Christmas tree I remember stood in our parlor when I was 4. It was the first tree after the death of my father 2 years before. This loss had plunged our home into extended grief and diminished hope. Holidays and birthdays were now barely noted. But if any celebration could rise from the ashes of such sadness, that holiday would be Christmas. I sensed that I was the main reason for the extra effort that year, so the youngest in the family could marvel at the splendor of a candle-lit tree. This meant the added chore of tree cutting for someone, in this case my older brother. He hiked to Uncle Nelson's grove on the far corner of our farm and cut a tree and pulled the 5-foot fir home on my sled.
Wow.
And of course that tree had my illustrator has done a beautiful job of including
Can you show it to the camera?
strings of popcorn and real candles. Real candles.
You had to be careful with those, I imagine.
Yes, my mother, it was lit only briefly every evening, and my mother, of course, sat close by the tree with a pail of water. She was our fire department. And the story goes on. That same Christmas Eve, when supper dishes had been washed and put away, my 2 older sisters and I were cozily seated around the tree, glowing with candles. Mother presided nearby with a pail full of water. Into this peaceful stillness, a loud thumping and clattering erupted on the porch. And I'll stop there. The other memory was another Christmas Eve in a different year. I was a little older then. And, but both memories stay prominently in my mind. And I have to say that together with Harold Oxdahl's illustrations, which are so beautifully done in all of my writings, he's done 24 illustrations for my coming book, but he did a number for Holy Cows as well, including the cover. His illustration of the barn and the 3 figures walking toward it is enough to still bring tears to my eyes when I read that. It's a formidable.
We don't want to see you cry on TV.
No, I won't now. But it's a tender. You know, Roger Rosenblatt wrote a lot of essays that I am very fond of, and one of his books is called "Unless It Touches the Human Heart," and these were 2 memories that touched my heart deeply, and I think they touch the heart of the readers as well.
Now, you have offspring to leave this legacy to?
Oh, yes, offspring, and I hope on and on. You know, I hope that I have 2 children, grown children, and they, of course, have heard most of my stories already. Mm-hmm. My grandchildren have not. They've heard some, but I think my grandchildren are inclined to think that their grandmother stretches the truth. What they have to realize is that I don't. My stories are pretty much unembellished.
Wow.
I don't decorate them. They're honest stories. Holy Cows is an honest story.
When your grandchildren have children of their own, if they read the book, then they're going to have insight into something that
Yeah. Well,
even their parents haven't been through, or grandparents.
exactly, exactly. It's my exact feeling entirely. We've lost, if we haven't lost that culture, we are in the process of losing it. I don't think it will ever return. It can't return, but it is a culture that had a lot of color and a lot of harsh reality too. So I want to document that so far as I'm able. I think that it's important that each individual tells his own tale. I think that no one can tell it for us. Only we can tell it. And I'm really determined that I will tell my own. Now, I encourage other people to tell theirs too.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
But I can't force them, you know, I can't force them. But I have looked through my long life, I guess I have to say this, long life. I've looked at the evolution of communication. Oral communication has changed markedly from the time I was young. Well, we had abbreviations in our speech too. I'll try a few out on you, see if you know what I'm saying. Because when I was in school, we would shorten statements and questions like this, for example. If I say to you, "Jeet yet?" What would I be saying? "Jeet yet?"
I have no idea.
Have no idea. Well, I heard that a lot when we were in college. "Jeet yet?" It means, "Did you eat yet?"
Oh,
Another one probably was, "Are you going now? Are you going now?"
yeah. Are you going now?
Yeah, that's easier, isn't it?
That's much easier.
Yes, of course. You probably, if you didn't get "Jeet yet," maybe you wouldn't remember the song that was based entirely on English running together, which was "Maresy Dotes and Dozy Dotes and
Oh,
Little
yeah.
Lambsy Divey."
It took me a long while to
Understand what
know
that
that
said?
little lambs eat ivy meant little lambs eat ivy. And
Well, we
I mean,
sang-
I was in high school before all of a sudden just dawned on me.
Well, to go back to the evolution of oral communication, the abbreviations now are only letters.
Oh, yeah.
LOL,
Yep.
ASAP. What are some of the others? Well, I can't think of any other examples right at the moment. So oral communication really now depends on thumbs. Have you noticed that?
Oh, yes. I've seen two students sitting next to each other, looking in each other's
Yes.
thing to see what the other one was going to write. And also, my first wife had gotten a program so that it finishes writing the word for you.
Oh,
And she got rid of the program because it didn't always say what she wanted it to say. And
Right.
sometimes that can get embarrassing.
Well, it's a whole study, of course. But now since I am a writer, let's move on to written communication. That has evolved too. And I am old enough to remember when people literally maintained cherished friendships through correspondence. Cherished friendships. And people received the correspondence and saved the letters, sometimes in a decorated box. If they didn't have a box, it was tied with a ribbon. I really wish that I had saved some of my letters because some of them were very dear. The only one that I still have that I am thankful that I have is one single letter written by my father to my mother.
Oh.
When he was on a trip, a very arduous trip from northern Iowa to Wisconsin. And he sent a letter to her. It was out of the question to call because telephone service was so bad in those days. This was, of course, way before I was born. But he wrote her a letter, and it's extremely dear. And if my father had written his story, I wouldn't sell it for $1 million. So that is why I encourage everyone to write his own personal saga, really. The written record, to me, is more precious than, well, and more stable, more reliable than the oral, because oral stories change with the teller.
Oh yeah, and from time to time.
Absolutely. Even jokes do. You know, one person tells a joke, and the next person telling it will tell it slightly differently. So I want to refer here a little bit to some notes of mine. And it's to refer to cyberspace communications. Now, I don't discredit electronic communication. It's wonderful. It's very fast. It's convenient.
You and I had wrote emails back and forth, and it was very, like you said.
Oh yes, yes. I absolutely recognize that. However, there are some disadvantages. Because of my age, perhaps, I do not rely wholeheartedly on archiving messages in cyberspace. Now, you can, they save records. I understand all of that, but I don't feel cyberspace reliably archives communications as well as the paper variety.
Yeah, even birthday and Christmas cards with a little note on them, when you see it, that is something the person did with their own hands.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's a personal link there. Another thing that cyberspace lacks, a significant lack in my opinion, is that you cannot wrap a cyberspace message in beautiful colored paper and give it as a gift.
Oh yes.
Yeah, impossible.
Impossible.
So, and another disadvantage is a cyberspace message can't look down on you from a volume on the shelf in your library and help you recall what is the message held between the covers. So I'm a big advocate in writing in black and white on paper. And you can publish it electronically, that's fine, that's very doable now. But for safekeeping and for those who come after us, I want my story to be encased in a volume with a protective cover. And so that's the road that I have chosen to take.
When I was growing up, it was during World War II, and most of the correspondence obviously had to go letters from far, far, and far away, and some of them, the wife would get them, and there would be sections of the sentence that would be blacked out with black because
by the censor
because, and I've often wondered, when you look at that and you see the censored and it was your grandfather or something like that, and you know that something was censored and they've been far away for years, your imagination can add anything to that little section you want, and it's so priceless.
Yes, it is indeed. Well, of course, I remember World War II. I can tell you that my high school graduating class was the first class, this is true, the first class from which young men were drafted if they passed their 18th birthday before commencement day. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
If they turned 18 before graduation day, they had to go off to war.
Miss graduation.
Oh yes, of course.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Wow.
And at another memory of that age, since you've mentioned it, at our high school, at our senior prom, there was a piece of paper. This is interesting. I hadn't thought of this before, but there was a piece of stationery with an envelope with the address of a serviceman on the envelope. And while we were waiting for our banquet to be served, we were to write to this serviceman so he'd have a piece of personal mail coming to him.
And that's not cyber, that's real handwriting.
Yeah.
And saying something
Yeah.
important.
So we all did. And I met the serviceman later, many years later actually, when I was in college. And I realized I didn't know him, of course, he was the one I'd written to. Well, a lot has changed. Our attitudes have changed and so on. But what remains is our unique stories.
Oh, yes.
And I can't impress on your viewers enough the importance of putting that down, getting it down. Now,
You're my new best friend.
I hope so. One can't have too many friends. The idea of passing that on to people who of course you will never meet, but it will be absolutely priceless to them. For everything else, there's MasterCard. The personal message is what we should pass on from ourselves to whoever is interested in it.
I know my mother had a lot of adventures that never were put on paper. My daughter talked to her and put some down, but I know just what you mean. And my children and grandchildren they're missing all of this. You were talking about selling cream. The writing it down so they understand it is like the cream. The stories you hear is like the milk, but the cream is
rises
better.
up to the front. That's exactly right.
We got about 5 more minutes left.
Okay, well, we can do that. You know, you've got a storyteller here today, Jerry, and storytellers love their craft.
Oh, yes.
They love to tell stories. So I have more to tell.
One thing that I'm glad that we're doing today, we're going to go into your second writing. You're talking about the
Spoon holder.
spoon holder, and I'm anxious to come up to that one as well, because when we were talking before, you were talking about that, and I was amazed because, well, some of us old folks remember something on the table where, it wasn't an official spoon holder, but you just had some silverware there just when you needed it,
Well, we called it a spoon holder. The collectors nowadays call them spooners.
Oh.
But I stick with the old name. And what I have included in my upcoming book, excuse me, is a collection of mismatched stories. They don't follow any specific order, but it's a collection of stories from my life that for some reason have touched me. And it seemed that the title of a spoon holder fit because we had the mismatched spoons in the spoon holder in the center of the table. When you set a table, you put a plate down and a knife and a fork, but rarely a teaspoon.
Oh.
Now, I've written an essay on the spoon holder telling about a little bit about the reason for it. And, but I think it was because people didn't have matching silverware at that time.
Oh yeah, that's
And so it seemed inappropriate that a group of mismatched stories would belong in a spoon holder. Well, since we're running out of time, I'd like to read a little bit.
okay.
I guess about.
Oh, we got about 1 minute left. Maybe we'll have to do that into the next.
All right. Okay. Well, this will go in a minute. These small spoonfuls of stories that I will read today from my spoon holder could have been written by anyone, because we all, in a sense, measure out our lives in coffee spoons. Mine will differ from anyone else's because they are uniquely my own. They are the small, indelible samples of my life, given words and put on paper to leave behind, so anyone in the future can know who I was. I'm speaking now to the readers or to the viewers, when you begin collecting your own coffee spoons of your life, I hope you will find many waiting there in your own memory and have a spoon holder to hold them.
Wow, great.
That means a book.
Oh, yeah.
A book with a cover.
The book with a cover. Yep. Even if you put it under the mattress, it's there, and it's your story. Okay,
Exactly.
So we gotta quit for today, for right now, and I know you'll be back. It'll probably be a show in a couple weeks or so. It won't show one right after the other.
I'd be delighted. I'd be delighted.
So why don't we call it quits for now, and we'll come back for the next one. This is Jerry Vasey and Ilamae Lund. We're closing off this section of I Can't Write Right, and I guess we'll be running clear in a second or two. So thanks again for watching our show, and we'll be looking forward to having you watch the next one. If you know of any authors that I can bring on the show, I would very much appreciate that. Thank you very much.